Past Masters Regatta at Grafham Water, windy one, 20 gusting 25 with gusts of 30. Now, here's a glimpse of the course. Very long beat. W to R was 1400 meters with a trapezoid shape, so off to Y, then down to H with an epic reach from H to W. Now, the pre-start was pretty intense. It was just me and a laser in the end. It was just too windy for everyone else. No one else fancied it, especially because it was a northerly breeze, which meant that it was big waves as we were launching on the southern shore. Now, as you can see here, the committee boat was pretty south and pretty wavy for a reservoir, but I thought it'd be good practice for the inlands, which are in just under 2 weeks away. So good to get out in the 600, as I've been sailing a bunch of other boats recently and want to make sure I can get the rough stuff before it's important. Now, yeah, this is not exactly what I had in mind for the Past Masters Regatta. I was expecting to race a bunch of other boats, especially because it uses the Wednesday evening format that Grafham has, which means all fast boats are grouped together in the first start rather than splitting asymmetric boats onto a separate course. So I normally prefer this in a 600 because then I get to race other fast boats such as the 4000s, the 500s, I guess 400s too when they go out, but that's less common. So it works quite well, whereas on a Sunday, they will do a dedicated windward leeward next door to the round the cans course. So not always ideal for me in a 600 as we like reaches in a 600. Now, I'm working my socks off here trying to get the boat to drive through all these waves. You can see how much texture there is on the waves, just to give you an idea of the gusts. And I think the highest recorded gust was 30 knots on the weather station. So pretty intense stuff. Now, the laser was using a radial rig, pretty shut up sailor. So even though I knew I did have a slight advantage of the 600 just gets quicker exponentially when it gets windier, it did rely on me keeping everything tidy, getting the boat, keeping it upright and not getting into too much trouble. Now, as we got further towards the windward mark, the wind significantly got lighter. You can see already the waves are getting smaller. Obviously makes sense, the fetch is shorter, but still quite a few white horses. Now R is past the water tower, so you'll see the tower probably on the left there, but popping a quick tack in, you can just about see it. It'll be a bit more obvious in a minute, but the waves got shorter, but also it got very, very shifty and it got very gusty. You could just see the laser radio on the right hand side there, so I've made a pretty good gain there already, even if my tack wasn't the quickest, but it was smooth. I didn't fall in, and that's the key thing. Now, I've got everything cranked on to max here. Outhaul's pretty tight. I've got my Cunningham really, really tight, and my kicker is practically block to block. Otherwise, playing the main was just really difficult with the gusts. And as you can see, I'm actually struggling a fair bit. So I definitely need to do some strength work on my arms for these breezy conditions. But the boat's generally pretty flat, which I'm pretty happy with. I'm starting to sort of plane a little bit more upwind on this port tack. Found it a little bit easier to play a little freer on this tack. I don't know what it is in all the races. I just found port a little bit easy just to get the boat driving, whereas I felt like it was a bit more chopping wood and the waves going on starboard. Now, I reckon I'm on the I'm thinking, am I on the ley line? I don't want to get too close to that north shore because it can get pretty shifty. I know this from a previous video I did where I was late to the start, I believe it was. We went all the way up to the tower and it was, it got pretty shifty towards the shore. So it kind of paid off to not go too far right. But I was just trying to keep it tidy, few attacks as possible. Now, R is directly ahead of me. I'm thinking, that's great, I can just keep going. But the wind shifts were really catching me off guard. I was thinking, okay, I just want to be able to get up there, go around the mark and head out on the reach. But as I was getting closer, I was getting headed big time. I thought I was probably going to have to put a double tack in. I had a chat with the radial sailor afterwards and he said, it was crazy how significantly lighter it got up at the top end. I mean, obviously it makes sense, it's sheltered, but it was it almost felt like a completely different day of sailing. And it's funny because when the wind comes from the north, people who would typically go sailing don't because it looks bad. But if it comes from the south, it looks quite calm. There's not many waves. If you look to the far shore, you can see the waves crashing. But it's interesting to see the perception, of the wind. This doesn't look so bad. And I was wondering, is this maybe too much for the 600? Or, am I going to struggle? But I went on the basis that it looked all right. It came up and down. And also, with it being northerly breeze, it's quite easy for me to sort of drift back to where I started. I can drop the main, drift back, not a big deal. It's a bit of a problem if you've got to go the other way, of course. So you can see I'm getting headed big time. I'm now barely japezing as well as I'm trying to go for height. I probably should be taking some Cunningham and kicker off, but I just know that there's still some hefty gusts and I want to be prepared to be able to manage those. I can see a big one coming now. I get myself out ready to sort of handle it, and I take a bit of height with it too, just to help me get around that mark, which is the red one there you can see. So it's getting really shifty. We're still quite far from the shore. We're probably, well, I guess 50 meters or maybe a little bit further, but it's not like sailing on a puddle where you're, you know, the mark is right by the trees. We're still a fair way away from them. So, yeah, here we go. Just about squeezing round R. Doesn't help that I've got my board up from when it was really windy, but you wouldn't know. If you'd only seen this part of the video, you wouldn't believe it if I told you what the start line looked like. I did mention this to the race officer, so he gave us a slightly shorter course. Also because I did 2 laps in total over about 40 minutes, whereas the Radial only did 1 and had to wait around for a while. Now, everyone was like, oh, poor Radial had to wait and get cold. I went straight back into sequence when I finished. I didn't get a chance to even... I had like a quick slurp of water, and that was that. So I reckon I maybe, you know, should get a little more sympathy, but you let me know what you think. Now, this reach was pretty hefty. I wasn't low enough on the trapeze because I just couldn't quite gauge if it was going to be really shifty and gusty, and the answer was yeah, it was. You can see the water tower on the right-hand side to give you an idea of where we are on the lake. But this reach was pretty nice. Where it was so flat, it was just really easy just to have the boat just get planing and just go in a straight line. I'm just trapezing off the gunnel because I don't really need to be on the rack where it's such a broad reach. I could probably be standing further forwards where it's so flat, but I was just playing it safe, I guess. Especially with first lap, just getting the rust off. And to be fair, you know, if I was a little bit too far forwards and get hit big gust, potentially could nosedive, so not optimal. But yeah, heading towards Y now, which is one of the new marks at Grafham. Getting pretty close. I'm now thinking I'm kind of more into a forward reach run sort of thing, so let's get the weight a little bit further forwards, which I've done. I think I start thinking about getting kicker off shortly too, just opening up that sail now that it seems like less of a reach. But here again, another big gust. Just get that boat planing, get the nose up, and just let it roar. There we go. But then it just sort of ends because the angle from this reach is just a little bit too broad to be comfy. Could do with Y being, I guess, a little bit more north. Now you can see I'm bearing away for a Y now because I went for a little bit of height to get planing on the reach. So now I can get the kicker off and get the boat going really nicely downwind. Now here's the other interesting thing. It didn't really feel that windy downwind. I had the kicker fully off, Cunningham all the way off, and you can see the sails now nice and open. It's got a lot of shape to it. Whereas before it didn't really have any shape to it when I was going upwind. I had it completely flattened off. Now I'm thinking, you know what? Jibing doesn't seem too leery, you know? I played it kind of safe. But yeah, jibe, pretty safe, no drama, no issues there. Now heading straight towards H. The run was quite short, which I guess helps. I wonder if this left-hand side was a little bit more sheltered, but like there's no white horses. It feels pretty calm. So I'm thinking maybe it's calmed down. You know, maybe it's not as windy as it was when we started. Maybe, you know, the wind has dropped. Now, the bottom reach was epic. H to W, the perfect angle. Now, I get myself planted on the rack. I do sort of like toy between having my foot on the rack. Oh, I slipped forwards there. It's because I was trying to get myself lower, get that center of gravity lower. So now it's a little bit easier just to manage my weight on the rack, getting my foot on the gunnel because I just didn't feel very comfortable. But the boat then just flew. You can see some of those waves are starting to form, and you can see some of that texture from the gusts and the white horses on the left-hand side. Now, I'm doing a lot of work with the rudder here. It's really important to bear away on the gusts like you would in an asymmetric boat and just keep the boat flat. It's a lot easier to sort of steer the boat on these broad reaches than it is to play the main. I mean, even playing the main doesn't solve your problem. If there's a big gust and you're already pretty much touching the shroud, you've got to bear away. And it took me, I only really sort of got that in the last year or so, I guess, of how important it is to bear away. I guess I just never really had that much wind when I was growing up sailing on a little gravel pit, you know, and I was sailing a radial, so again, much smaller sail, and I was often a little bit over the weight for it. Definitely should have been in a full rig, just didn't have the money to buy one. So yeah, absolutely flying. And you can see some of the waves. I'm able to sort of almost surf down them. I'm bearing away for a few of the waves to sort of take a little bit of momentum with them, and I'm just absolutely flying now. Now I'm a little bit closer to W, so I can now see roughly which angle I need to go. At the moment, I'm not really focused on trying to aim for it. Instead, I'm just bearing away in the gusts and heading up just to get a little bit more speed when it dies down a little bit, just to keep the momentum on. So once I get to W, I can worry about how I'm going to do the rounding. At the moment, I'm just optimizing for speed. Now, big drama there. I tried to pull myself up on the trapeze, did not put it in the cleat, instead dropped myself to the knot again, which threw me off a little bit. But I was trying to get myself higher, so once I go outwind, I'm in a little bit more comfortable position. Well, actually, I'm going to pop a tack in straight away, and I wanted to make sure that when I tacked back onto port, the trapeze was where I wanted it to be, because there's nothing worse than it being too low and just being a massive pain to hook onto. Now, got the kicker, trying to get the kicker and the Cunningham back on now, so that when I go for my tack and go through the start line, the boat is ready, and I think I've answered my question. It's still very much as windy at the bottom here as it was at the top. We've got some pretty big waves. As you can see, white horses all over, and it's going to be chopping wood on starboard yet again. Now, I think it was taking me about 20 minutes a lap, maybe just under, just 18 minutes a lap. Really struggling to get myself comfortable there. A lot of heel there. Really need to work on that. I'm trying really hard to get height for some reason, even though I'm actually overshooting the committee boat. But once I get past the committee boat, I don't know, I just could not get comfortable on starboard. So because of this, I actually decided to tack onto port fairly early on, a little bit earlier than last time, just because I felt like I had the boat going nicer on port. Yeah, it's just some big waves. Just felt like I could get it planing a little nicer on the port tack. So going along here, you can see the laser on the left there going downwind. So I've made a pretty good gain on the laser, and now I just got to make sure I don't do anything stupid, don't capsize on a tack, throw it in by missing the trapeze, anything like that. A pretty clean tack, quite a safe one. Just need to hook myself on a little bit quicker there. Nearly capsized, but was able to get myself out just to balance it. But the boat's wanting to reach, so it's starting to accelerate off before I'm ready. I'm able to sort of wind it up into upwind mode and get it going. Now, I just felt like this port tack was just a lot better. Felt like I was just properly planing upwind on this, and just had a lot more control over the boat a little bit. Definitely not playing the main as quite as hard as I'd like, but I think the boat was going pretty nicely, all things considered, as it was pretty survival conditions. Now, I'm aware that it's going to get shifty at R, so I decided before I go for my tack just to really overlay the ley line, just to sort of... There's nothing worse than having to pinch for height, especially in this sort of breeze, so I thought, let me just overlay it a little bit. If I have to close reach into it, I will be coming in with some pace. So it's not all lost. So let's see how I get on there with the ley line. Definitely going a little bit earlier, a little bit later this time. Again, nice clean tack. And the thing is, as anyone, I know a lot of people who've just bought 600s have found my videos and have been watching them. You probably find it really hard to tack when you've got your kicker all the way on. Now, this is just a thing that comes with lots and lots of practice, and I still messed it up from time to time on this day. I've got my kicker max on, but as long as I get my entry into that tack smooth, and specifically turn quite a bit to really push it through the no-go zone, it normally can get through no problem. So I find it's easier than having to take it off, tack, and then pull it back on, especially if you can get it going. I guess the other benefit is also if you take your kicker off, open the sail up a bit more. The issue of when it's so flat is if you're not hooked on and ready to go, all it takes is a little bit of wind to hit it, and then the boat just falls over. And you saw that from one of my earlier tacks that I was really struggling to... the boat tried to fall over because of how flat and rigid the sail was. If I had the kicker a lot looser, a lot of that would be lost in twist. So, you know, there's sort of swings and roundabouts, but the flatness helps me get the power I need. Now I'm trapezing, and I'm going quite nicely. Now, I did wonder about trapezing lower. If you watch one of my training videos from the other week, I was experimenting with trapezing really low upwind on these sort of windier days where it's not too shifty. I probably could have got away with that. for the first half of the beat. On this tack now, once I've tacked onto the ley line where it's a bit more shifty, probably play it a little safer, where it's so up and down. You can see how hard those gusts are hitting me. It's just so quick to react. So it's important that I, I'm looking out for them. I definitely wasn't doing a good job of looking for the gusts today. I was just focusing on just controlling the immediate, right, rather than planning ahead. I know that goes against what I've been trying to do this year, but, sometimes needs must. Now we're getting pretty close to the ley line. I've got a bit of an idea now of what this course is going to be like. This 1400 meter long beat is pretty wild. It's fun to do these larger style courses sometimes, especially because, everyone loves going upwind in a 600, and the broad reaches were pretty epic. The downwind was also pretty nice too. It's just maybe could have been a little bit longer, I guess, but if the top reach was a bit tighter. But the bottom reach, I wouldn't change a thing about that. That was epic with the waves. Now we're getting a little bit closer now to R. As you can see, I think I've overshot it a fair bit, but playing it real safe this time just to avoid any drama. As you can see, the gusts are now really twitchy with the trees there. It does kind of get quite hilly behind those trees. I've done a lap of the lake on my bike to get a vibe of what's going on. It gets very, very hilly just behind where I'm standing, and then it drops big time to where my feet are, I guess, in line with my feet, and then it's pretty flat around in front of my mast, but then it goes back up again on the left, so it's sort of very up and down. Now we're finally at R. We're going to bear away now. I've already got my kicker off a little bit to help, and this time the gust didn't quite hit quite as much. Something I've been trying to do to help me here a little bit is I drop myself lower on the trapeze before I get to the windward mark and take the kicker off. While I'm standing further forwards, easy to start getting the controls off and just have to hold the main sheet tension really tight for that little bit longer. Just means that when I go around the mark, everything's where I need it to be and I can focus on going quick. But in these conditions, the main thing is not about getting the boat set up right. It's about control, right? Getting myself lower on the trapeze and getting my center of gravity lower just means that when I go around that mark and get hit and go really, really quick, I don't feel unstable. And when I'm normally trapezing quite high on the rack is when I often feel like I'm going to swing forwards and pitch pole, and I never quite get myself planted because I'm just never going that quickly. We've gone past Y, so now we're going downwind. Again, I'm going to get everything off. Kicker and downhaul are nice and off, and you can see the sails opened up big time now, going really, really nicely. I actually did think about using my brand new sail because I've never used it before, and the inlands is next week, so I wanted to give it a break in, but then I thought, actually, it's honking. What am I doing? Let me use the old sail. So use the old sail with the patch on the window. Now, thinking of going for my jibe. That's actually, I quite like that. That was quite a nice jibe. Boom came across nicely. Arguably a little bit nicer than the last jibe I did. Now, I overshot the ley line for the jibe mark a little bit here. So it meant I was coming in with quite a bit of pace. I'm trying to get the controls back on ready for that broad reach. I've already got a bit of a taste of what's to expect. The boat's planing so nicely. The amount of spray coming off is just epic. Get myself hooked on, and as you can see here, getting myself lower because I know how difficult it is to drop to the knot once I am round the mark. So going really, really quick. Still can't quite see the mark, but I know that I'm getting there, and as you can see, the boat has plenty of pace in it. There's the mark just in front of me. I've just overshot it a little bit, so just bearing away a little bit here. Potentially got too much kicker on, but I'm set up now for that reach, and as you can see, not long before I get to it. Getting myself ready to just hop out on the side. Sunshine's joined us as well, and as you can see, just pop myself out. I did a much better job of getting 2 feet on the rack here, and as you can see, absolutely flying. Get myself a little bit lower on the trapeze in a second, but getting 2 feet on the rack definitely just helps just get the boat nice and flat, and just helps to keep the nose out of the water too. Go down to 1 foot for a second while I drop myself. Sometimes I find going down to 1 foot is quite good for when I need to adjust myself. Prevents me having any, if I do have a wobble, because obviously I'm not playing the main or steering quite right, it just gives me that sort of stability to hook my foot on the rack. But yeah, absolutely flying. This is peak 600 sailing right here. Yeah, let me know what you think. Does this make you want to try a 600? Bearing away for a big gust there. Just as you can see, there are little waves that you can surf off of, and they're quite long waves as well. It's kind of interesting. Like there is something to work with. I think this is possibly one of the coolest shots I've got. I mean, kudos to the race officer for setting such a great course at this bottom reach. And he kept the bottom reach in the next course, which was pretty good too. Which will be a separate video if you want to see that. Make sure to subscribe. But yeah, absolutely flying here. Lots of spray. Luckily for me, where I'm a bit higher out the water, I can see. The laser radial sailor commented on the fact that he couldn't see anything for most of the race because of the amount of spray, and I wouldn't have believed him if it wasn't for the fact I've just got my full rig set up in my laser and took that out on Good Friday when it was quite windy, and yeah, I couldn't see anything. My glasses were just completely covered in spray the entire time. Back on the 2 racks and just bearing away here, getting pretty close to W, as you can see, thinking about how am I going to handle this. Now, going to try and get myself higher on the trapeze without much drama. Absolutely flying yet again, and I know now that I need to tack fairly straight away to get through the finish. Now, the shortened course is up, so I'm just trying to focus on getting around the mark. Racking the water is not ideal, but again, I'm just focusing on keeping it upright, just keeping it tidy, waiting for a good opportunity to get my kicker back on. In sort of retro, I should have just gone for the tack. I'm there trying to get everything back on, but I already had quite a bit of kicker on, and it would have helped me get through the tack having less kicker on. So actually, like, I should have just gone for the tack, get out the other side, get myself comfy, and then worry about getting the kicker and the downhaul on now. As you can see, I actually get the Cunningham on now once I'm across. Now, yeah, again, big and wavy at the bottom here. It's crazy that, you know, with a long enough fetch, in this case about 1400 meters, the waves can get pretty big. It's surprising what nature can do. Now, yeah, final stretch to the finish line. I ended up winning this race, which I'm really happy with. I think I beat the laser on handicap by 6 or 7 minutes, which, I mean, I did an extra lap, which only helps me in these conditions, assuming I don't fall in. And the 600 is just a weapon in this sort of breeze. If I was racing similar sort of boats, like other sort of skiff-type boats or asymmetric boats, then probably be a little bit more equal on timings. Like if the 4000s are out, definitely would have been a we don't know until we get in sort of thing, and it would have been a much closer race. But, you know, good little race, even if it was just 2 boats. Shame we didn't get more, but good fun nonetheless. Yeah, hopefully we'll get some more boats out for the next Grafham TT event, which is in July, I believe. It's on Saturday the 5th of July. Might be wrong. The RS600 Regatta. I love these sort of events. Just a great way to get out on the water, practice some new stuff, and yeah, get some more practice in before the big events in the summer. I've got 2 more videos to make from this event, so make sure to subscribe to the channel to catch those.